how to make a member function of one class as a friend of another class. Uh, if we have two classes, let's suppose class 1 and class 2. Now, if we want that a function in a class 2 want to access the private data member of class 1, like the function void print, this want to access the private data in class 1 int x. So how to do this? So in this situation, if you look at this scenario, you see when we define like this class 1 first, and then after that class 2, then there is a problem. The problem is that here we are using the class name uh, friend void 2. So this is the class name which is declared later, but compiler is coming line by line. So when reach to this line, then compiler don't know what is 2. Okay, so that the 2 is unknown to compiler in class 1. So what's the solution for this? The solution for this is that if you think like this, that okay, what about if we forward declare the class 2. So the forward declaration of class 2 is also not working. Okay, let me show you practically, then hopefully it will be easy to understand. Let's suppose we have a class 1, and inside this class we have a private data member int x, and after that we have a public constructor 1. So the first one will be the file constructor. I will define in the same line because you can just. So the file constructor is doing nothing, and maybe overloading constructor, it gets one integer value because the private data x is integer. So int value, and here x equal to v1. I'm defining in one line because these are two short uh, functions, so it's easy to read. Okay, now let's define class 2. For simplicity, I'm not defining other functions in class 1. So then class 2, class 2, in class 2, if we just define one something int y semicolon, or maybe if we don't define any, it's okay. So public, let's suppose here we have a function print, and this print function is using class 1 a reference variable is obj, let's suppose, and here want to display the obj dot x, obj dot x. So this is simple. If you see here, it gives us here a message. So how to solve this problem? So here is an error. So we should define this class inside. We should introduce this class in class 1 as a friend. So how to define, how to introduce? To introduce like this is the word friend, then void return type, then the class name, it is where it is in class 2, and scope resolution operator and print, and it takes the reference of class 1. Okay, so now we introduce this function there, but the error is still there. We cannot run this application. There is still an error. Let me show you. For example, 1 obj 1 and 2 obj 2. If I call obj 2 dot print and send obj 1 as an argument, You see, if save this one and run it, you see it gives us an error that true has not been declared here, meaning to say the class 2 is unknown to, to class 1. The class 1 don't know anything about class 2, because the procedure of compiler is like this. The compiler comes line by line, and when it reaches to this line number 9, it see the 2 and don't understand what do you mean by 2. Compiler complains that, hey, please introduce to me what is 2. So the possible reason that maybe if you think, maybe some of you are thinking like this, that why not we should forward declare the class 2 before class 1. Forward declaration means that we tell the compiler that you don't worry about the word 2, it is a class, and later on in this project I am defining, so then whenever compiler see the word 2, then don't generate error, then looks for its definition, and whenever it gets a definition, then it understand what is 2. But here in this case the situation is still the same. We let's run again. You see it says that X is private and you cannot access in this way. Okay. Another error. Yeah, X is declared for private. So it means that you see the 2 he knows, but whenever here the object is trying to access the X, even though we have introduced him as a friend function, but still it cannot access the X. The reason is what? The reason is that here at this line the compiler know that the 2 is a class, but there is no detailed information to the compiler about the print function, because the print function is coming from class 2 and compiler don't know what are the details of this. Okay, so class, in this case you see like define, so the solution we should do what, define the class 2 before class 1. Okay, now let's put because the forward declaration is not working, now let's put the class 2 before class 1, because the compiler don't know about the print function details. Okay, so now the print function and the class 2 are already there. Okay, but you see again here is an error problem. The problem is that in this case you see the data is not accessible again. The class 2 cannot access this private data again. Let's save this and see the error message again. You see no declaration method void to print. So this declaration method, this error, this function is not there, or it doesn't have the right to access this private data here. Why? Because at this time you see the X is not created yet, and the X, this private data, the compiler don't know yet about this value, and we are trying to access it. So to solve this problem, the actual solution should be like this, that put the definition of this function after class 1. Okay, and define here like this. You see that this whenever we are defining a function outside the class, then we are using the class name and a scope resolution operator to tell the compiler that this function belongs to which class. So this function belongs to uh, class 2. Okay, and here we will change the definition just to declaration. Okay, so now the error done, and now we can access the value X. Let's define let's initialize this with the value 10, because we have an overloaded constructor. Okay, so let's save it and run again. So now again there is one problem. The problem is that you see here we are using the word 1, which is about class 1, but the compiler don't know about this. So this time we should forward declare the class 1 before that. Whenever we are telling the compiler that if you see the word 1, don't worry about it, it is a class and we are defining later. So then compiler can understand what is it. Okay, so this time when we run it, then we can get the output 10. Okay, if we change like this, the value of x equal to, then save and run. So you see the value of x equal to 10. Now this is the way how to make one uh, member of one class friend to another class. So let's summarize once again. The concept is a bit uh, complicated. So this is class 1. Okay, simply we have one private data x and two constructors, and here we tell the class 1 that there is one function in class 2, its name is print, and it will use argument of ur1, means of this class object will be class object reference, it will use as an argument. So that function will be your friend, please allow to access your x. Okay, can, so then the procedure is that if you define the class 2 after the class 1, then this the word 2 and the function definition creates a problem. Then what we did, we defined the class 2 before class 1, and class 2 is very simple, just having one variable and one normal function, but it is using one argument, which is a reference of class 1. So it is okay, but still there is a problem that the word 1 is not known to compiler here because it is defined at line 10 and we are using at line 8. So to solve this problem, use forward declare the class 1. So once we forward declare, then this problem finish. Okay, but if we don't define the function outside the class, then this accessing of the private data will create a problem for us. So this is why we just declare the function inside the class 2 and define the function after class 1, because this the private data member of the class 1 should be introduced to the compiler before accessing this value inside the function here. So this is the way to put a few steps quickly. The function whose member you, the class whose member function you want to make its friend, make that function before then the access function before that class whose private data you want to access, and the class whose private data you want to access, forward declare before the class 2, and the function that you want to become a friend in class 1, just declare that function, don't define, because in the definition it will access the private data member of the class 1 before class 1 generated. Okay, and put the definition of the class of the function that you are trying to make as a friend after the class 1. So this, in this way, a member function of one class, which is this one, will become friend to another class, which is class 1.